Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Recruiting Rundown. I am Kendall Smith, joined alongside of the one, the only Wes Mitchell, back here to give you your recruiting rundown for the week on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Wes, before we start off, how you doing? I know it's been a busy week. We're gearing up for the Nyckoles Harbor visit, which we'll get into in just a little bit, but you staying little bit relaxed because I know you've been working a lot this week.
Yeah, we're good, Kendall. Georgia coming to town. That's always fun. We'll see if the Gamecocks can hang in there, but I can promise you on the recruiting end, a big weekend for Carolina. And we have dubbed this Nyckoles Harbor week on Gamecock Central. There will be an article with Nyckoles Harbor in the headline every single day on Gamecock Central this week. It's Nyckoles Harbor week. I stole that from Pup Howard, the South Carolina linebacker commit, who has been working tirelessly to recruit Harbor for the Gamecocks.
Listen, I think you're 100% right. We literally have had something on Nyckoles Harbor every single day, and rightfully so. 5-star athlete in the class of 2023 that South Carolina is trying to recruit. Now, before we get into talking about him, talking about everything else with recruiting this week, we have to give a shout out to the sponsor of this show, Liberty Tax. So Wes, you know a lot more about taxes than I do, but I just went through tax season last spring and it was a rough time, but I think having Liberty Tax on my side would have been helpful. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I head into this year.
Yeah, Kendall, I think you're calling me old by saying I know more about taxes than you, but the tax team at Liberty Tax, our friends over there, Larry and his team, they are here for you year round. They are local folks. If you filed an extension this year, your deadline for that is actually coming up October 15th. So go ahead. If you want somebody to help you through this process, or you want to go ahead and get, situated for next year as well, give our friends there a call, 803-462-5576. They have 3 convenient locations, Lexington, Irmo, and then in Columbia as well. So again, 803-462-5576. Our friends at Liberty Tax, they'll help you out, Kendall.
Wes, I think you could read commercials for a living. That was great. That was so
it?
smooth.
10 out of 10?
Yeah, I mean, everybody comment down below what you think, but I think Wes could have like a little side hustle as a voice actor.
Hey, voiceover guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll make it work someday. But Wes,
that sounds kind of fun, actually.
Well, I think it would be fun, but what's probably going to be more fun for the people watching this show is us talking about Nyckoles Harbor, finally getting in to discussing what is at stake this weekend for South Carolina with this 5-star athlete in the class of 2023. So we've been talking about Harbor for weeks and weeks and weeks. This is finally his official visit weekend to Columbia, South Carolina. So Wes, I just want to start it off by asking, what does South Carolina need to do this weekend to put themselves in the best position possible with Harbor going forward?
Kendall, I don't want to be cliche, but I'm going to be. They need for Nick Harbor to be getting on the plane, leaving South Carolina on Sunday, thinking that was home. Like that felt like home. I think for South Carolina, they're going to have to lay it all out. You and I have talked plenty of times on these shows, Kendall, about how this is not your typical recruit. He's going to take a holistic approach to the process. That means football. That means track. That means academics. That probably means some NIL. That means a 40, 50, 60-year decision. Very sharp kid, very smart kid. He understands all those things. And not a kid that's going to be BS'd either. So I think this is someone who what he's looking for does kind of match, I should say, the approach that South Carolina has taken to trying to build their program, building up these players on the field and off the field. So I think he's already felt that his 2 times at South Carolina unofficially, but now is when you got to answer all the questions. Like you got to feel like you answered every single question that he may have, that his family may have, before he hits that plane and heads back up to DC.
So who are a couple of those other schools that Harbor is really looking at that you'd consider to be South Carolina's main competition at this point?
Yeah, I think Michigan is one that's been mentioned a ton. LSU has had, I would say, some momentum as of late. I think South Carolina is in it as well. Those are kind of, he has a top 7. Those are the 3 you kind of hear the most about. Maryland maybe is a bit of a dark horse. That's a school that he's talked about taking an official visit to as well. Obviously, you have some kind of hometown connection there. I would not rule them out. And then Miami is one that's popped up lately as well. So those three I just mentioned, though, kind of are the ones you would maybe give the highest percentages. But again, he really is not a prospect that's taken like 10 or 15 or 25 visits early on, like some players have. So he's still kind of formulating, I think who his favorites are.
So Wes, Nick isn't the only player that's coming on an official this weekend to South Carolina. Talk about that other player who's going to be in Columbia, who's actually already committed to the Gamecocks and will be at South Carolina this weekend for his official.
Yeah, Jatavia Shivers, the offensive line commit, is going to take his official visit. A lot of the committed guys have already taken their OVs, and so this is just an opportunity for him to get his knocked out. He already is committed to the program. He already has a great feel for the program. So it's more about, for the committed guys, just kind of enjoying a weekend, maybe letting your parents see some of the additional things that parents may have questions about, learning more about the academics, where you're going to be living as a student at 650 Lincoln. Freaking amazing. Very, very impressive. So, yeah, for Shivers, I think he's locked in and committed to South Carolina, but still, it'll be a fun weekend for him and several other Gamecock commits that will be in town unofficially as well.
So not just official visits happening this weekend, as you mentioned, but also unofficial visits happening as well, just as important in so many ways because you're laying a lot of that groundwork with future potential commits to the University of South Carolina. So who are some of those names, Wes, that people should really be looking out for that are making unofficial visits for the Georgia-South Carolina game?
Yeah, we're still putting our list together on Gamecock Central most of the time by either late Thursday or at some point on Friday. We'll have what would be like that complete list up. But so these things can be fluid, but some guys that I'm anticipating being there, one of the bigger ones, Cam Pringle, right now the number one offensive tackle in the country for the class of 2024. He's expected there. He said he is planning to be there. And, he didn't make it in for the Georgia State game. I know he was planning for that week to be at Georgia and Oregon. I'm assuming he made it on that trip. So an opportunity to get him back. He's taken a bunch of trips to South Carolina. Josiah Thompson, the big offensive lineman, also in that class from Dillon High School. I think South Carolina's in the best shape for him. So two of your big targets that are, really, I would say just high priority guys for South Carolina that will be there. And then, we're going to be tracking some other guys. I haven't heard yet if Mazio Bennett from Greenville is going to be in. I was checking in on that. It was unsure as of Tuesday if that was going to happen or not. He did make it in to the Georgia State game. So he's been at South Carolina recently, but they're going to make a push, I'm sure, to get as many of these kids to their campus for this game as possible. Hurts a little bit that it's a noon kickoff. It's a little bit more difficult. I was talking to Dante Reno. He would, of course, love to be down here to get in on recruiting Harbor. But a lot of these Northeast guys, they have Saturday football games. They play a lot of Saturday high school games up there. So his schedule has hurt him being able to get down here as much as he would like to. He's working on finding an opportunity to get down here for a game at some point soon.
So you mentioned that kickoff at noon, and Beamer talked about it earlier in the week, Wes, and I thought it was interesting. He said, I know a lot of fans wanted this game to be a night game. And of course, for recruits, when you see the lights and the whole atmosphere of Williams-Brice, I think all of us can agree it's just different when it's at night and you're under the lights. And that's pretty much anywhere, but of course at Williams-Brice Stadium too. The atmosphere, though, regardless of whether it's at noon, 3:30, 4, or 7 o'clock, is so important to these recruits, to their visits. So just in your time covering South Carolina, West, how important are the fans? How important is the atmosphere to swaying a lot of these recruits to committing to South Carolina?
Some people may think I'm crazy, Kendall, but it is just as important, sometimes more important than what actually happens on the field. You've heard me say this before. Prospects do not watch the games the way you and I do. They're not going in saying this team must win for me to pick that school. They're watching a lot of times maybe their position. Other times they're just enjoying a fun, free chance to watch a game with their friends. So they're not really going to sit there and say, oh, South Carolina lost. That means I'm not going there. They want to look around and be like, man, I'd love to play in this atmosphere. Kendall, I've seen noon games at Williams-Brice Stadium have excellent atmospheres. I've seen night games where you expect a great atmosphere, and South Carolina maybe doesn't play too well in the first quarter, and the energy kind of runs out of the building, I guess is the way to say it. We're going to talk about this on Before the Sandstorm for the game itself. South Carolina needs to find a way to start pretty quick. But I think just overall, those really, really great atmospheres in the history of Williams-Brice Stadium have been when Carolina has found a way to make a big play early, give the fans something to cheer about, and then just sort of hung in there. So I felt like Beamer, speaking to the fans right now, I felt like Beamer was challenging y'all and saying, oh, you want a night game? Who cares? No one cares you wanted a night game. It's a noon game. It's the number one team in the country. Kendall's laughing at me. Hopefully I'm not putting words in Beamer's mouth, but that's the way I took it. Like, go ahead, get out there tailgating early and get in the game because number one team in the country has entered your stadium and you got to be in your seats and ready to pull for this team. And I thought it was interesting, Beamer saying the standard for Williams-Brice atmosphere has been set, and he wants to see you, the fans, live up to that standard this week as well for 100 different reasons.
Well, I don't think anybody's necessarily expecting South Carolina to come into this game against Georgia and win. And I'm not trying to be negative in that way, but I think for the recruits, it's about what is the future of this program? Like, can they hang in there for a second? What's the atmosphere like? How are the fans? How can I come into this program and how can I impact it for the better so that one day, yeah, maybe South Carolina will beat Georgia. And I'm not saying South Carolina won't beat Georgia. I don't want people to say that I'm like sitting here throwing in the towel. Obviously, it's going to be extremely hard. Georgia is the most dominant team in college football, but that's why you play the game, right? Nobody's guaranteed a win or a loss because you have to play the game first. So definitely a lot going on this weekend. Number one team in the country coming to play in Columbia, South Carolina, noon kickoff. Probably one of the biggest recruits all year long to make an official visit coming to South Carolina in Nyckoles Harbor this weekend. Another official visit, lots of unofficials. Be sure to head over to GamecockCentral.com, everybody. We will have that full list for you later on in the week of who will be coming, who's expected to make the visit to South Carolina this weekend. But Wes, hang in there. You're doing a great job. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this quick little rundown, quick little recap. We've got plenty more in-depth analysis over on Gamecock Central. And then, of course, on our YouTube page too, GC Live with Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell. They do a great job breaking it down a little bit more in depth. And then we've got Before the Sandstorm as well coming out
Always
for the game. I feel like I just went on like a rampage of everything, but Gamecock Central to the moon, as we say, Wes. We're just doing everything now, right?
we are. I'm ready for Before the Sandstorm. Maybe from a new location this week. You never know where Kendall and I will pop up. So
we're doing a world tour Before the Sandstorm.
That's an exaggeration, but
we haven't left the state of South Carolina. We have not left. Actually, that's not true. I did it from North Carolina last week.
You did.
We're doing a country tour, the U.S. tour Before the Sandstorm, because I'll be ending up doing it from like Nashville, Kentucky, Florida. Anyways, I don't want to get all into that. I'm extending this way too long. Wes, thank you for your insight as always. Thank you so much to everybody for listening and watching. Head over to GamecockCentral.com for more. Follow us on all of our social media platforms at Gamecock Central. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on notifications. Like this video. You guys are the best. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.